here. Perfect. Okay. So we are now recording. Thank you again, everyone, for attending this evening. I'm going to go in here and share my screen. Here with the presentation is that you're going to see a number of products that are going to be discussed that are going to help assist your body with this brain detox that we're talking about tonight. And so when you go into your local Nutter store, they may or may not have all of them. They may. But I'm just letting you guys know that if your store does not have one of the products that you're looking for, they can just bring it in for you special order. So don't worry about that. So I'm just going to repeat for one last time. If anybody has any questions during the presentation, kindly just put them into the Q&A or the chat. And then at the end of the presentation, we will go through the questions and make sure that everyone has the information that they're looking for. So I'm going to turn off my video, or I don't even know if I can do that actually, but I am going to just go in here and have this start playing. So if for some reason you can't hear it, please do let me know right away here and I can do a little fix, but we should be all good to go. So enjoy.
So for tonight, there is two of us, like I said. I think most of you probably know me. My name is Orna Villazan. I am a naturopathic doctor. I'm the medical advisor with Tallgrass and involved with a lot of our educational trainings here. So either my face or voice has probably grown familiar over the last few years. And Orsha, I think many have had a chance to listen to you speak as well, but it's the first time you're joining me on a live webinar like this. Tell us a little about yourself.
Gosh, I'm nervous. I have to live up to the pressure of co-hosting with you, Orna. You're just such a wealth of knowledge. Guys, I'm a neuroscientist by trade, so it makes sense that I'm tag teaming tonight's webinar on the brain detox with Orna. And then I hopped from Western medical field into holistic and became a registered holistic nutritionist. So currently I practice in that really, I think, really nice integrative space where my team and I work with patients with various neurological diseases and mental health imbalances, and we use nutrition and supplementation and lifestyle as our modality of choice. And I've been an educator with Tallgrass for about 9 years.
Yeah. And so you're saying I'm a wealth of knowledge, but let me tell you guys, a lot of this content has been based on Orsha's knowledge. So don't be too humble over there. Alrighty, I'll let you start then, will I?
Yeah, thank you so much. Let's take it away. The first thing I want you guys to know is that absolutely brain detox is for real. And not only is it for real, and we'll get into the science in a little bit here, but it is crucial. I find that a lot of people in both the medical and the holistic fields, we talk a lot about how to fuel, how to get nutrients delivered to the body and the brain. And I'm going to make a case for tonight, and I want you guys to also think about moving forward, that equally important to how nutrition and nutrients get up to the brain and the rest of the body is how toxins and wastes get out. And I might be biased because I'm trained in neuroscience, but I think in the brain it might be even more critical to have a discussion about detoxifying the brain, because most neurodegenerative diseases studied to date have toxins that build up in the brain that we're going to talk about tonight, that brain detox is responsible for clearing out. So very, very important.
Mm-hmm. And so this is where the lymphatic system comes into play. So just to be sure, I think you've all figured it out, but I'm definitely not referring to the lymphatic system. It's not a typo. There is a correlation between the two, but they're not the same thing. So the glymphatic system is the brain's dedicated waste clearance system. So basically, it's the way that our brain has evolved to clear out all these toxins that Orsha was alluding to. So if you don't have a glymphatic system that's working well, then you are going to have a whole lot of buildup of cellular waste and debris and inflammatory cytokines and all kinds of things that we prefer not stay there. And we have to remember that the brain and the central nervous system in general are very highly active tissues. There's a lot of metabolic waste that's getting produced on a regular basis. And so it can build up quite quickly if not being addressed properly. So what would happen? I mean, a bit like this picture, there's a lot of junk in there. And you can imagine how this can easily lead to cloudy thinking and memory problems and cognitive decline and we're discovering more and more definitely neurodegenerative diseases. So we're still learning a lot about this. This is an evolving discovery, this system. In fact, it was only named and identified fully about a decade ago, and the science is just exploding since. So I'm really glad you're here, Orsha, because I'm hoping you can help explain how it works in a nice, easy way, because it took me a while to understand.
I'll do my best. Thanks, Orna, though. You did a great job setting it up. So guys, imagine this continuous arterial pulsation. And that's really what, Orna, you were just referring to. Back in 2012, Dr. Micah Nedergaard out of Denmark discovered this dedicated waste disposal system of the brain. And because the brain doesn't have a lymphatic system, before 2012, we all thought that, unfortunately, waste just wasn't getting cleared from the brain. And then the scientist visualized in anesthetized rodents this pulsing flow of CSF throughout the brain, cleansing it from garbage. CSF, if you don't yet know what it is, it refers to cerebrospinal fluid. And the cerebral arteries push CSF from the choroid plexus in the brain, kind of through up into the lateral side ventricles, up through the two lateral ventricles, the third ventricle, the fourth, and then it joins up with the lymphatic system at the base of the brain where the brain and the spinal cord collect. So it all comes back, and we're going to talk about kind of like how to use nutrition and supplements to optimize our lymphatic flow tonight. At its foundation, we need to talk about blood vessels and blood flow. They help circulate the CSF through the brain, flushing it and cleansing it. If we want to get a little more sciencey, we do, I hope, what actually builds the glymphatic system? It's a very special type of cell called a glia, or a glial cell. And the way I always like to refer to them is they're kind of like the lesser known, lesser respected, although they're getting respect finally, sibling of the neuron, which we've all heard about. Glial cells do a lot of things. And for tonight's conversation, they're shown to create these almost like donut-shaped tunnels around the cerebral arteries. And then they have these specialized channels running through them called aquaporin 4 channels, and they help pump the CSF and clean the brain. And so this all sounds incredibly almost too good to be true, right? Like our brain does this for us and reduces our risk of brain disease. The issue here is that science has now shown without a doubt that this happens primarily when we're asleep. So that's the catch, and we're going to talk about that more too.
Mm-hmm. Don't know if you saw me drawing. I was trying to highlight that tunnel donut.
No, I didn't see the drawing.
I cleared it up because I clearly wasn't very talented an artist on the screen, but hopefully you guys saw that a little bit. So, obviously it's simple but complex, a system, like anything in our body, really. When it's working well, everything seems to be very straightforward, but obviously a lot of different things can go wrong, and unfortunately do go wrong. And it's ultimately anything that interferes with that pulsing action is going to, and that drainage. So if either of those aren't, so the push and then the drain, if they're not working well, then you potentially are going to start to lead to problems. So that can include cardiovascular health. Obviously, we talked about the blood being brought to the brain as that initial sort of pressure coming up. So if the heart isn't pumping appropriately, or the blood vessels have been narrowed or obstructed, think atherosclerosis and all that plaque buildup, right? If there's been a full-on heart attack, like anything where that pumping of the blood and the flow of the blood has been impacted, so where the blood might be slow or sluggish or stopped, that's even worse, to the brain, obviously will impact that glymphatic system. Breathing is a big one, actually. As we know, when we take proper breaths, the diaphragm comes up and down, and it creates like a suction and pressure that changes and evolves and contributes to this pulsing and flow of fluid. So any change in pressure from like if we're not inhaling and exhaling properly to create that change in pressure and that pumping action, then that can lead to more problems. So think chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, asthma, sleep apnea would be a huge one. As you mentioned, Orsha, sleep is when this is all happening. So if we're not getting oxygen and proper breathing during our sleep, then obviously that pumping action isn't happening well. Any kind of obstruction, so those tunnels that I was trying to highlight, if they get squashed, if there's not enough, I'm going to go back. So if there's this nice fluid around the artery, so blood's coming to the brain, and then this fluid is collecting here. If that's squashed, then it won't drain. Like these channels will be squashed and potentially blocked, and so you're not getting a proper drainage. In fact, this is what Orsha was just sharing with me earlier. This is where we see in vascular dementia. So when dementia that is caused by vascular issues. And then you can have damage and trauma. So again, if any of those channels have, literally broken off or been disrupted and just or blocked in some way, that might happen with a concussion. It can happen with a stroke. It can happen with any kind of traumatic brain injury. Then obviously then that drainage isn't happening. And what shocked me, I just learned this literally minutes ago, is that this can happen within minutes. So like with a stroke, within 2 minutes of a stroke, you have so much edema in the brain that it squashes the channels. With concussion, within minutes, you have damage enough to cause problems. So essentially, the faster that we can kind of help someone get back to an appropriate lymphatic flow, to get back to good sleep, as you know, lack of sleep would be a big way that things can go wrong, then the better the outcome for the person. Is there anything to add there, Orsha?
No, you've done a really great job going through it. I think the glymphatic system and drainage is so critical. When we see any of these bulleted points that Orna just mentioned, what we see then in patients and animal models of these diseases like heart disease, breathing issues, etc., is we see these toxins laid down instead of drained because there's been damage or things have fallen off or been squished. So these toxins, these wastes, are deposited in exactly the route where the CSF should be flowing, where the glymphatic system should be draining. So what a strong correlation there, that in a healthy person who doesn't have these issues that you're seeing here in this list, we see those toxins being cleared out. And in people with these issues, these toxins are being laid down. And that's why you guys may have heard or seen customers coming in and they have heart issues and now they have dementia, or they have a breathing disorder, a respiratory issue, and now they have some sort of neurological disease. So the correlation is there, and one piece in this puzzle is going to be this glymphatic system.
It's so amazing. It's just another way that we're understanding how interrelated all of these systems are. Mm-hmm. That's fascinating. All right, so that takes us a bit to the aging brain. Like aside from trauma and
yeah, we're all going to age, and currently the number one identified risk factor for neurodegenerative disease is aging. That doesn't mean that because we're aging, we are destined to get neurological disease. So that's something I always want to make sure I'm clear on, and people, you guys hear me. Nonetheless, it is the number one risk factor. And I think that it goes back to the previous slide. As we age, we are more at risk of cardiovascular issues, respiratory issues. We're not sleeping as well for a number of reasons. And what we also see with aging is these toxic proteins and their metabolites building up that are characteristic of different neurological disorders. So this ultimately comes back to glymphatic function as well. When we look at animal studies or preclinical research in animal models of aging, they show that with aging, our glymphatic system reduces by upwards of 90 to 95%. So this is no small thing. This is a very significant thing. So I always encourage, if we want to age gracefully, of course we do, we need to think about this system.
Wow, I hadn't realized it was that big a decline. That's huge. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, since this pretty new in terms of discovering and understanding how this glymphatic system works. There's an awful lot of theories that are popping up left, right, and center in regards to various neurological diseases, and wondering if the glymphatic system is involved and to what degree and in what way. But up to date now, there are only a certain number of studies that have been completed enough. They're animal studies, I think, for the most part, Orsha, I believe, that have in some, have acknowledged a strong link or in some way confirmed glymphatic function being a factor in the disease. So the list includes Alzheimer's, vascular dementia, Parkinson's disease, ALS, as well as cognitive symptoms that we see in advanced diabetes. So again, we talked about that, or you did, Orsha, the toxic protein piece, like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease. Both of these are neurodegenerative diseases. One is more dementia, one is more kind of movement disorder, but both are linked to an accumulation and a buildup of specific toxic proteins. And we call them actually proteinopathy. And so we're understanding now that the inability or lessened ability to drain these proteins may be at the crux of some of the problems. And they've gone further. They're starting to ask questions. I mean, you talked about those specialized channels that drains the tunnel. They're called, did you say what they're called? They're called aquaporin channels. Yeah, AQP4. And so they're starting to question if there might be polymorphisms there, like mutations of, the same way that we have with methylation ability and like different things. We're all built slightly differently. And if our channels are built slightly differently and are maybe not as efficient as optimal would be, then this may explain some of that genetic predisposition that we're seeing with some of these neurodegenerative diseases.
Yeah.
It's really interesting where the research is going. Yeah.
And it also kind of speaks to progression of these diseases as well, because I can share like anecdotally, and I'm sure Orna too, you've seen it with patients too, like the most common thing that ties all of these very different diseases together is people are coming complaining that they can't sleep.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like the chicken and the egg. Like once you have these issues, sleep becomes even harder for you. So really, really interesting connections. Unfortunately, we don't have too much time to go into detail, but you guys might be familiar with some of these toxin proteins and their names. With Alzheimer's disease, the one we see deposited in the brain is called beta amyloid, and the glymphatic system is directly responsible for flushing it out. With Parkinson's disease, the toxic protein is called alpha synuclein. With ALS, it's SOD. And then with cognitive symptoms of diabetes, I just wanted to note a really cool preclinical study using rodents that was able to pull together and predict the severity of the type 2 diabetes symptoms based on the flow of glymphatics. The drainage of the glymphatic system. And there's a really strong correlation. The worse the flow was, the more these animals had cognitive symptoms of diabetes.
Which brings up the question of flipping that around. So if we have optimal glymphatic function, what can we hope to see?
So if we've got good glymphatic flow and the brain's being cleansed, we're going to hopefully have more of our cognition, learning, and memory protected as we age gracefully, and we may see a reduced risk of neurodegenerative disease. Anecdotally, some things we may observe: fewer headaches, more mental clarity and energy, better ability to focus, less anxiety, sadness, and even reduced pain.
Mm-hmm. So essentially, the better we take care of ourselves, the better we feel when we can. Anyway, it's not always in our control. So have good functioning glymphatic system. It's dependent on a number of factors, and we've touched on some of them. So it does touch on our heart health, our cardiovascular health. It touches on immune health because it does ultimately drain into the lymphatic system as well, and there's inflammatory aspects involved. How good are our blood vessels functioning? So anything like inflammation or chronic disease or poor dietary lifestyle choices all can have an impact on the drainage of our glymphatic system. We built for this talk, we wanted to like take all of this information in and say, okay, well, how can we break this down into certain sections that are easy to retain, communicate to our clients, and actually hopefully help them start building on optimal function. We broke it down to 4 pillars, and that includes nutrition, sleep, movement, and we'll go into mindfulness and breathing in particular. So I'll let you start the first pillar,
Thank
Orsha.
you. Thank you so much. Look at that brain made out of food. Interestingly, science tells us that the best foods for your brain are the same ones that are good for your heart and to protect your blood vessels. So I think that's a really important connection to make. I think that hydration and getting not only oxygen, but vitamins, minerals, and other nutrients that are carried in water to the body and to the brain are going to be very important. Again, that's like a fundamental recommendation is drink more water. And then really things for both the brain and the heart are antioxidant rich foods. I always tell people to eat the brainbow. See what I did there? Rainbow, but brainbow. So all sorts of naturally colored, not artificially food dyed, whole foods. The most well-researched these days are things like the brassica or the green leafy vegetables, fatty fish, particularly cold water carnivorous fish, high in the omega-3s. So things like wild salmon, halibut, cod, trout, mackerel, sardine, and anchovy would be some of my favorite brainy fish. Protein, of course, it breaks down into amino acids, which then build back up into the language of the brain, aka neurotransmitters. Berries are getting a lot of attention because they're just ridiculously high in phyto or plant nutrients. Turmeric's got a ton of science behind it. And I love walnuts because, have you guys noticed? I'm sure you all have, they look like the brain. So I think it's really cute visually. And again, they're loaded with protein and with those N3s or those omega-3s.
So it's not like a full extensive list, but it definitely outlines some of the key ones to think about. And it does bring us into, I mean, we are here for Botanica, so we are going to touch on some of the Botanica products. And the nutrition aspect really ties in the greens powders. Okay, so you think green for brain health. So what do green powders offer us? I mean, when you talk about the brassica and all the green leafy vegetables being so rich in nutrients, and they are, I mean, they're rich sources of magnesium. We call, it's the anti-anxiety mineral, it's the relaxation mineral. Magnesium lives inside plant blood, so it lives in chlorophyll. So the more something is green, the more you're going to find some lovely magnesium sources in there. There's also rich source of B vitamins. In fact, B vitamins are so important for brain health that each one, aside from B12, but all of the others are actively transported across the blood-brain barrier. So the human body has evolved a way to actively make sure it's getting all those B vitamins into the brain. That's how important they are. And our greens are a great source of those. They're high in antioxidants. They help buffer any kind of inflammatory and acidic buildup in the tissues because they're so rich in minerals, which are alkaline. They support detoxification. Now, more of our research is on the lymphatic and liver aspect of detox, but I'm going to hazard a guess that in the next years we're going to discover there's a component of drainage there as well in the glymphatic system. So the Botanica's Perfect Greens, just a little note on them. They are among the more, especially the unflavored and the berries are among the most concentrated greens on the market. We've done the comparative look and research on that, and we state it right on the bottle. So you can have a lovely conversation with people, like you can see right here, 7,435 milligrams per serving, which is quite high in terms of greens. And we do this by putting the actual greens. It's not pressed into juice. The fibers are still there. There's absolutely no fillers. We also we've kept it really clean in the sense of just pure greens. There's some antioxidants made up of berries and whatnot that potentially can be in there depending on the formula, but we didn't want to add medicinal herbs that could create interactions with medications that people are on, or prevent young children or older people from taking them. We wanted it to be green. So someone comes in and is like, I want nutritious food greens. This is where you're going to want to go, the Botanica Perfect Green. Anything to add before I move on to the next one?
No, I think this was great.
Okay. So the other product within Botanica to consider is protein. And in particular, our Perfect Protein Elevated Anti-Inflammatory. So Orsha, you touched on protein earlier as being so important for the building blocks of our neurotransmitters, like how those amino acids basically make up all the new neurotransmitters in the brain. So someone's not getting enough protein, which unfortunately is far more common among the population than we might like to think, then they are lacking these basic building blocks to help optimize cellular communication, brain activity, and function in general. In particular, some of the amino acids we think about when it comes to brain and neurotransmitters, we're thinking tryptophan, we're thinking tyrosine, we're thinking histidine and arginine, and they're involved with the production of a lot of our neurotransmitters and neuromodulators. And then what I really like about the combining the protein with some of our herbs, in particular, we wanted to highlight the anti-inflammatory formula because it carries turmeric in it. And turmeric is a huge brain food. And curcumin, which is one of the most active constituents that has received a lot of research, it actually can cross the blood-brain barrier. And we know it's a powerful anti-inflammatory, and so it does help address neuroinflammation. And what is one of the things that can cause, edema and like buildup and potential squashing of those channels around the blood vessels could be a buildup of a lot of inflammation in the brain tissues. It improves cognitive function in patients with Alzheimer's disease. It's known to support the brain-derived neurotrophic factor, that's BDNF. It's a natural antidepressant. It improves memory and attention. So these are so many things about turmeric that we don't talk about. We usually, we talk about it from the body perspective and at the powerful anti-inflammatory, maybe we talk about liver, but there's a lot of research going into it with regards to the brain. So protein's important, turmeric is important, and this is a nice way of combining the two. And let's not negate moringa leaf and its antioxidants and tons of minerals in there as well. Anything to add?
Yeah, the one thing, guys, that I think is really important when you're recommending turmeric products to your customers is you want to recommend turmeric whole root. And curcumin is really cool, and we love that it crosses the blood-brain barrier. Newer research is starting to show us that what we need in addition to curcumin are its buddies called curcuminoids. They want to work together. And curcumin's friends, the other curcuminoids, are what help curcumin jump across the blood-brain barrier and help you bring down that neuroinflammation, that fire in the brain. So guys, look for products that have whole root turmeric.
Oh, that's really interesting. Like I knew that it was the curcuminoids and the tumerones as well, which is a different family, help with a better absorption in the digestive system, but it's also helping cross the blood-brain barrier. Interesting.
Yeah, they help them together. Yeah, it's really cool. So that's where the research has gone, kind of as whole root. I mean, holistic people, you all knew this before we did. We isolated everything and studied it and told you curcumin, which wasn't wrong, but now it's about the curcuminoids and whole root turmeric.
Interesting. I'm going to retain that one. Okay. So what else?
Guys, people often ask me when I do education around the glymphatic system, Orsha, is there a certain food or a certain nutrient that has actually been shown to increase brain detox and how quickly the CSF is flushed through the brain, carrying the garbage out? And there is. So far, what science has shown us is that the omega-3s, but not so simple. so far, what we're seeing in the literature is that the marine-based N3s, so EPA and DHA, are the ones that have been shown to increase glymphatic system drainage. So ALA so far has not been, alpha-linolenic acid, plant-based, has not yet been shown to help. It appears so far that the magic for glymphatic system is EPA and DHA. As you guys may know, ALA is really hard to convert. Some research I've looked at show that only like 5 to 10% of ALA even converts into EPA, and even less, about 2 to 5% of ALA is even being converted into DHA. So far, it appears to be those two omega-3s that help with glymphatic system drainage. These two fatty acids support the clearance of that beta amyloid, that protein I talked about as being the characteristic diagnostic proof, post-mortem, of course, of somebody that died of Alzheimer's disease. Their brain is full of this protein, beta amyloid. No one else's brain is. The N3s, the EPA and DHA, are also being shown to support those special aquaporin 4 channels that help flush the CSF through and around the brain. So there's a very direct connection so far between EPA, DHA, and glymphatic pathways.
Which brings us to...
Dun, dun, dun. Super cool product from our friends at Altera, you guys, called Neuromega. And I am so excited about this one because check out how much DHA, decahexanoic acid, is in 1 teaspoon. This is the highest DHA concentration and has really set the standard in the Canadian market. The research is showing EPA and DHA are going to help with glymphatic system, but anecdotally, and also kind of what the research is saying is EPA and DHA have very different jobs in the brain, and both are important. And you'll see that this Neuromega product does have both. It has a bit of EPA. We work with EPA more for things like mental health concerns, like depression, anxiety. That's what the science is showing it's strongest for. DHA is the big one we use to reduce your risk of dementia or slow progression, high dose DHA, and to recover and naturally treat a traumatic brain injury such as a concussion. So you can imagine if you're trying to recommend a dose of DHA that's shown to be clinically effective, it would be so expensive for your customers. This gives a very high therapeutic, clinically effective dose of DHA in a teaspoon, making it super budget friendly as well. That's what I love the most about it. I love that it's easy to digest. It comes in a really nice triglyceride form, tastes good, sugar-free. And then you'll see along the bottom, we have photos of some of them here from the portfolio. We've got the two on the left are orange flavor. All of them deliver the same 2,750 mgs of DHA, but the one on the left there has been marketed towards little ones. You'll see that cute little monster there. The second one is marketed towards adults, but same dose. Those are sweetened with stevia. The next one there, the raspberry ginger, is sugar-free, is sweetener-free. So that's a really good one. And then another one that we didn't show a photo of is the key lime flavor, which is actually my favorite out of all of the Neuromegas because I love key lime. And that one uses monk fruit flavor enhancer for that little touch of sweetness. So I think this is just a really premium quality product at a good price point.
Mm-hmm. And so it's such a key product in terms of this topic that's why we brought it in, even though it's not a Botanica product, but it is part of the Tall Grass group of brands. So you can still access it easily. So aside from the nutritional piece, there is, we've talked about sleep a few times already. So we really, really need to learn to seriously prioritize sleep. I don't know if I can emphasize that enough. I know for me, in the last number of years, my sleep has become absolutely sacred. Like I will, I'll come out like a lion and go, if you in any way attempt to interfere with my sleep. That's how important I have seen it to be on a personal level. But what we're seeing in our patients, what we're seeing in the research is that sleep plays a huge role in our health. It's not just a passive, I can't function, and if I want energy, I need to sleep. It's a lot more than that. And as a society and as individuals, I think we do often fall short in this department. So the glymphatic system primarily operates during sleep, and maybe a better way to say it, because It's not like it stops functioning entirely when we're awake. It's more that it's disengaged when we're awake. And then it's kind of like we turn the down switch off when we fall asleep, and then it's given freedom to work optimally. So what we're seeing in some of the animal research is that we have a 60% increase in the space between cells in the brain when we sleep. And this seems to be associated with hormonal shifts that happen in a part of our circadian rhythm, and notably a decrease in norepinephrine during our sleep time. So this may be where that increase in space has. Ultimately, the way I see it is that the brain tissue is just relaxing. It's kind of going blah. The same way that our muscles and our tendons and our ligaments are relaxing while we sleep, the brain is doing the same. So this decreases the resistance for that flow. So that pulsatility, that ability to push the fluids through all of those systems and layers throughout the brain happens with a lot less resistance. And therefore, the removal of that waste of the amyloid proteins and all the other different proteins that are linked to various neurological diseases can happen more effectively. In fact, that connection between the sleep and brain health is so strong that they have seen that people who suffer from sleep apnea, so for those who get their breath gets cut off in the middle of the night, there's different ways that can happen, but basically the breathing is slowing down, the oxygenation is not happening, so the oxygen is not going to the brain, wakes them up, prevents them from getting a good quality sleep. So people who suffer from sleep apnea have 70% higher risk of contracting Alzheimer's or developing Alzheimer's disease. So that's one of the ways that sleep and neurological disease are highly, highly intertwined. So crucial to optimize that sleep for ourselves, and it begins by prioritizing it, because a lot of the time we're just simply not giving it the importance and the space and the time that it requires. Now, having sleep challenges and difficulties is a different conversation, of course. Mm-hmm. But there's more to it. Orsha, I'll let you go into that.
Yeah, just a little overview here of sleep. You'll see this little graph here. We've got a number of different stages from stage 1 all the way to stage 4. And stage 1, is that kind of awkward stage where you're starting to fall asleep, but you often feel like you're falling. So you kind of go like that. You all know what I mean. That's the lightest kind of stage of sleep. Your heart rate is still quite active, breathing rate starting to slow down, but your muscles are still kind of like spasming. You get that sensation of falling. Then we move through stage 2 and into stage 3 and stage 4. And as we progressively move into the deeper stages of sleep, our breathing rate slows, our muscle tone slows down, right? Our heart rate, everything just slows down. And the stage 4, when you're in the deepest sleep, is going to be the hardest stage to try and rouse you. Like people could be like, your kids could be like shaking you, screaming at you. That's going to be the hardest to wake up. So those are just very to give you an example of what it kind of feels like. And we move through these stages. And then we get to REM sleep, which interestingly, all your vitals are at the highest that they'll ever be throughout sleep. They're even higher than they would be when you're awake, but you're in sleep paralysis to prevent you from acting out your dreams. So that's kind of like how we move through our sleep cycle. What's very interesting for today's story on the glymphatic system is glymphatic drainage appears to happen primarily in stage 3. It's called non-REM stage 3 deep sleep. Going further, because then I know people always ask me okay, cool. How much should I be sleeping deep sleep? And I find this so interesting because, again, back in the day when I started working in nutrition 13 years ago, we would just be telling our clients, get at least 8 hours of sleep. It was all about quantity. And you'll still hear a lot of people say that, but it's no longer true. Today, what the research is showing is that it's equally about quantity as quality. And actually, it might even be more so quality-based, because What the science is saying now is for optimum glymphatic system drainage, you need to spend between about 13% to 23%. So if you're sleeping 8 hours, you need at least 1 to 2 hours of those to be in stage 3 and 4 in deep sleep. So that's what we want to aim for. You know, you might have customers coming to see you who are saying like, oh my goodness, I sleep 8 hours or I sleep 9, 10, 11. I'm not rested. I don't feel good. I then encourage a conversation and then suggestion maybe of products to optimize sleep and especially that deep sleep, because quality is now shown to be more important than quantity. And that might be news to many of you tuning in today.
That is interesting. So obviously, you know, some basic things that to kind of consider when we're talking about optimizing someone's sleep if they're struggling a bit is like it actually starts when you wake up in the morning. People get very focused on improving their sleep in that last, you know, half an hour before it's bedtime. But what you do throughout the day will impact how that quality of sleep at night. So start with, let's get the stimulants out. Let's cut the caffeine. And I know there's a lot of, you know, back talk when we even suggest cutting down on caffeine, never mind cutting it out entirely. But what I tell people, if you're sleeping well, then, you know, maybe just keep it, taking it early in the morning. There's some great things with caffeine and good cognitive function. Like there's benefits to it. I'm not trying to put it all into the negative here. But if you're struggling with sleep, you really, really do need to look at that caffeine intake, because it can take as much as 12 to 14 hours to fully break down and clear the system. And so even though you're taking that morning one and you're struggling with sleep, you won't know if it's really a factor or not until you cut it out completely. So what I tell people is like, look, give it a month, you know, just try 1 month. And if it's nothing's changed, well then fine. There's not much I can say to that, but give it a go. Getting good daylight, getting outside and getting the sun in your eyes to kind of remind the brain and the body that it's daytime. This is the time to be awake so that we can then make the transition more effectively later in the evening. Get some good movement, get some good exercise going, encourage healthy foods, don't eat too late, don't eat too heavy. I mean, I think most of you guys know all of this. I won't harp on it forever, but have that conversation. If like just kind of evaluate a little bit of their daily activities and how much that might be. Obviously, stress would be a big one as well. And this brings us to adaptogens a lot of the time. These ones are a great one. I think adaptogens early in the day help people kind of reset their circadian rhythm. So it's kind of like, I'm going to give you something to support your energy. I'm going to kind of give you that this is daytime, this is go time. And I really like ashwagandha in particular, as it does tend to be one of the more calming adaptogens. So it doesn't like kind of set people off, especially if they don't have the energy in reserves because they've been struggling with sleep for a long time. So it's a little bit more gentle, but you can explore different adaptogens. It can be holy basil or rhodiola or reishi. I mean, we have a lot of options that we can pick from, but I'm going to focus a little on ashwagandha today because there's a lot of brain research with ashwagandha as well. So beyond that, just sort of help you start your day, help you cope with stress, help you have some good energy that carries you through the day. Ashwagandha has actually been shown to significantly inhibit the production of amyloids. So those proteins that were implicated with Alzheimer's, ashwagandha reduces the production of them. Oh, mind blown. It's showing to help reduce neuroinflammation. So it's an anti-inflammatory for the brain. We saw how that was an important one with the glymphatic system as well. And there's also bits of research that are showing that it supports nerve growth factor and brain-derived neurotrophic factors. So that ability for the brain to recover, regenerate nerves that have been damaged are important. And ashwagandha, beyond, we think lion's mane a lot when we think that. Ashwagandha has got some research coming up behind it for that too. So this is why I chose to pick it. And then of course with Botanica, we have them super concentrated in liquid capsules. So we keep that liquid consistency. It's a bit of like a kind of a liquidy paste. It's an 8-to-1 concentration. And so you get, I need to take a second here. Oh, can I get the pen working?
I can help you. Tell me where to go.
I wanted to highlight the importance of looking at the dry herb equivalent down here.
Oh, you got it, but I got green.
A little messy. But it's easy when people, like a customer is picking up, oops, I'm sorry, guys. What did I do here? There. It's easy to focus on the 350 milligrams that's here as part of our, that's how much ashwagandha is in the capsule, but that's not actually the full story. That is the amount of the concentrated liquid that's in the capsule. The amount of herb that it took to make that is 2,800 milligrams. So when you're looking at the bottles, make sure to look at that bottom piece, and it really shows you the concentration. So important part of our liquid capsules. Okay, so then it does eventually hit evening time.
Yeah, and I think that you really want to get into a groove of developing some healthy sleepy time, sleep hygiene type habits, like doing your best to disengage from screens, a minimum of an hour, ideally 2 before bedtime. And the science behind that is to really start cutting down or out, ideally, those blue lights that stop the pineal gland's production of melatonin. You can, on your smartphone settings, go in there and put on a blue light blocker. My screen changes at 10 p.m. You can set the time from blue to a really nice warm red. So I'm blocking blue light so I can stay on my phone a bit longer and look at doggy Instagram. Light some candles, turn off your Wi-Fi, and let's get rid of those EMFs that are starting to dysregulate a lot of neuro stuff as well. Keeping your bedroom cool, dark, even using blackout curtains if you think needed, and earplugs. And another thing that's shown, and all of these are being studied now to help us not just get to sleep, but stay asleep. And as you may understand, and the conversation we're having today, the longer you're able to stay asleep, you guys, the more likely that you're going to move through and deeper from stage 1 to 2 and get to the sweet spot of 3 for glymphatic system. And stage 4 is not a conversation for today, but stage 4 is immune. And stage 4, deep, deep sleep, is weight loss and weight maintenance. So these habits that Orna shared with you for the day and what I'm kind of going through for the night are going to help you get to sleep and hopefully stay asleep.
Mm-hmm.
And let's talk about one of my fave supplements. It's called Deep Sleep, and it's geared exactly at helping you fall asleep. But ultimately, I think even more importantly, is staying asleep to get you to that stage 3, non-REM 3 and 4. This is a quite smart, strategically curated blend of different herbs that I love because they address different root causes or mechanisms of action by which a lot of us aren't sleeping. So they address things like you've got a dysregulated circadian rhythm, or your cortisol's too high at night, or you're in pain, and that's why you're not able to sleep. So it's a blend of ashwagandha, which Orna covered, magnolia, which I think it's brilliant. My dog's named Magnolia, so you can gather I really, really love this one. Magnolia is shown to significantly reduce cortisol during sleep, which is good because high cort will wake us up and not let us get into those deeper stage 3, stage 4. Magnolia recently is also shown to act on cannabinoid CB1 and CB2 receptors to help sleep by getting us to sleep and helping reduce pain. Passion flower is really cool. It's a relaxing nervine. It's antispasmodic. It's also shown to increase GABA, or anti-anxiety neurotransmitter. And jujube, or the Chinese date, is a mild analgesic and a mild hypnotic as well. We recommend with this one to use 2 capsules about 30 minutes before bedtime. And we encourage you to let your customers know this one may take a few weeks to really take effect. So stay with it. It might take a bit of time to kick in and really help you stay asleep through the night.
One of my faves for sure. And there's a question if there's any interactions with, say, magnesium or melatonin, which would be typical evening time products that you might recommend, and definitely not with the magnesium. I I don't think with the melatonin. I think you can combine the two.
You can combine it, but for today's story and just in general, and we can talk about this more in the Q&A, I don't love melatonin for a number of reasons. When we're looking specifically at melatonin, the glymphatic system, melatonin really revs up REM sleep and suppresses the other stages. That's why a lot of people report super vivid dreams. They might even turn weird or scary on you. So melatonin gets you to sleep, but it's not deep.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Well, I mean, I knew about the REM sleep, but I hadn't kind of like followed up the consequences of that. Okay. So I'm looking at times where we're getting a little tight. So we'll try and speed up a tiny bit here. The third pillar is movement, right? Keeping things flowing. It's important, obviously, to get the healthy flow of all our fluids. So our blood, our lymph, and our cerebral spinal fluid. We want that pulsing activity and action going. And a lot of that basically comes back to contracting and relaxing our muscles and getting that pulsatility through our own movement. I mean, we know this well with the lymphatic system. We talk about rebounding, and we talk about just getting regular exercise. I mean, and we say that for the cardiovascular system as well. So let's just help people stay in movement. And this can be challenging if there's been a long history of sedentary lifestyle. So encourage something, ideally that it resonates in their heart. It's something that brings them joy. It's something that they love doing. So I often like telling people, it's like, bring some music into it. Just dance if you enjoy that. Go for a walk, listen to a podcast if you feel the need to distract yourself, but do something to help you get started. And then it builds from there. I love talking to people about contrast showers, so the hot and cold. The cold, I recommend start slowly. Don't go freezing cold too fast. They're never going to want to do it again. Dry skin brushing is another great one. So just lots of movement, and that lymphatic flow, since the glymphatic flows into the lymphatic, is a key part.
I think, you guys, there's so many products on the market targeting lymphatic system now as it becomes more well-known and popular. We chose to focus on this product by our friends at Altera Herbasante because it is a homeopathic blend. That means it is safe and will not have any interactions with any medications your customers might be on. And again, when we're talking about glymphatic system, going back to one of those first slides that Orna reviewed with you, people may be on medications for cardiovascular issues, respiratory disease, post-stroke, that sort of thing. So above all else, we want to recommend a product that is incredibly safe, and therefore we chose to sneak in a homeopathic preparation to drain and help clear the lymphatic system. Because just to reiterate, after the brain does its job of flushing the toxins, it must join up with the lymphatic system, where the brain and the spinal cord touch one another. The glymphatic hands off those toxins and those metabolites and nasty proteins, and then it's the lymphatic's job to then continue draining it.
So definitely to encourage that. And then we've talked about a good bit about the importance of the blood circulation, and in particular, we wanted to bring in the importance of the blood getting to the brain, and spreading throughout the brain. So that cerebral circulation is important. And then there's a couple of key herbs that we tend to talk about a lot when it comes to that. One of the best known ones is ginkgo. We all know ginkgo. It's known for helping with that microcirculation. So we talk capillaries throughout the body, but especially recognized to help cerebral blood flow, so blood flow in the brain. So obviously this is a big part of that pulsing activity. It helps with cognitive function, memory, and so forth, a big part of brain health in general. And then another one that maybe is a little lesser known is lesser periwinkle, or vinca minor. This is similar to ginkgo. It's another circulatory stimulant. It helps increase cerebral circulation and also increases the oxygen being brought to the brain. So I'm featuring on kind of these two highlighted herbs because they're both found in a brain health formula, also by Altera. Kind of change the page here. Here you go, Orsha.
Thank you. Guys, this is such a cool product, again, to get the biggest bang for your buck because it has 4 different things in it that are shown to improve cognition through different mechanisms of action. Really briefly, for sake of time, we've got our smart mushroom lion's mane shown to stimulate both NGF and BDNF to grow new neurons and new glial cells for today's conversation. Ashwagandha, which Orna's done a great job of going through already. And then those 2 cerebral circulatory aids. The one take-home message that I want you guys to remember from this product, or really any product that you're going to be thinking about taking or recommending, if you see lesser periwinkle or ginkgo biloba in a product, you know it's going to act quickly because they're cerebral circulatory aids. So they bring blood and they bring oxygen and nutrition and whatever else is in the supplement, right, to the brain quicker. So you're going to notice a really fast, effective improvement in your cognition. So like your thinking ability, learning, and remembering fast from a product such as this one.
Great one that I actually have personally seen the impact and effect from. So I can definitely give 2 thumbs up for it. And then finally, in just a minute or 2, we don't, unfortunately, the mindfulness piece always ends up at the end of a talk, and there's always short on time for it, which is unfortunate because it's such an important and big pillar. But that mindfulness piece, especially for brain health, it's huge. And what does a mindfulness practice do for us on a regular basis? And I'm talking, just being aware of the present moment, doing some meditation, doing yoga, like whatever it might be, writing in a journal. There's a lot of different things that people can associate with mindfulness. But we've seen that it definitely improves relaxation. I think we know that well, but it improves our respiration and our breathing. And that was one of the impacts on the glymphatic system. It improves better oxygenation, so important for the brain. Healthy cardiovascular function, another key pillar we've been talking about. Decreased inflammation, another one for brain health. Reduce stress hormones, improve sleep, ding, 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 better concentration and focus, and the list just goes on. So definitely not to be negated, but we would like to, because of that breathing piece being so big, we thought it might be nice to just mention.
Yeah, like scientists, thank you, Orna. Scientists have made a really nice link now between the ability to exert a bit of control over our breathing rate or our respiration rate, and how that maps directly on to that arterial pulsation we were talking about that drives the glymphatic system. So breathing and control of how you breathe is a really big part of this conversation. So pranayama in Sanskrit literally means stretching and life force. So the breath is so incredibly important. A few popular types of breathing or breath work that have also been researched include 3-part breath, where you literally cut your breath into thirds and pull in the first third into kind of your tummy, second third into your rib cage, and then third into your throat and upper chest. And then on your exhale, you do that in reverse. Alternate nostril breathing has been studied as well as a really great way to reduce and control your respiratory rate. So it's going to be important for glymphatic system while you sleep. Lion's breath, really cool. I'm too awkward to show you what lion's breath looks like, but if you take yoga, you've probably done it and it's weird, but really cool. And my favorite, I love all of these, but I love ocean's breath. And I don't think I can demo it right now effectively so you can hear me, but you can imagine what you do on both your inhale and exhalation is you constrict the back of your throat. So you almost end up sounding a little bit like the ocean. This one is really great, has been studied in clinical trials to slow your respiration rate. It's also really good to affect and activate your vagus nerve, which is a whole other story and not for tonight. But these are some of the most popular and well-researched types of breath work.
So yeah, talk to people about it, remind them of the importance, give them a few little scientific tidbits that always gets people motivated, bring it into the forefront of their mind. So all in all, glymphatic system is the waste clearance system of the brain. We rely on several systems to make it work well. Our lymphatic flow, our cardiovascular function, our respiratory function, and our sleep. And so we broke it down into 4 pillars. So healthy brain food, plenty of good quality sleep, keep things flowing and moving, and then that mindfulness piece, especially with regards to breathing. So we had hoped to finish this early, but we're instead finishing it right on time. I'm just going to end the recording here and then bear with us another minute.
All right, so there we are. We have completed our glymphatic system, the brain detox webinar tonight. I'm just going to stop recording.